Good morning and welcome to our roundtable discussion with the Board of Race Oncology. My name is Chris Carlos. I'm a life sciences analyst who's been covering the ASX sector for possibly close to 30 years. We're here today to dive into the mission, strategy and future of race oncology. We will be talking about the science, the clinical pathway, the regulatory and partnering landscape and the commercial opportunities open to this company. We thank each of you for your time. For our audience, we'll introduce each participant briefly, then move into a set of questions and leave some time at the end for broader reflections. So without further ado, let's begin. And we might go to the panel and let everyone introduce themselves and maybe give a quick synopsis of their experience. Over to you, Serge.
Serge Scrofani. I've been on the board for about a year, I think now, which has been great. I'm coming up to my second AGM, which is going to be exciting. Maybe there'll be some NMR in the background that I can point to during that presentation. But my background, I've been in the industry for about 30 years. Was at CSL for much of that time. Ended up heading M&A strategy for that group for a period. And PhD background, and now I'm heading a private equity group, so I've made a transition onto the other side. But a lot of the experience that I gained at my time during my time at CSL has been incredibly helpful there.
Pete?
Yeah, Pete Smith, Executive Chair at Race. Like Serge, I have a background in science, was a biochemist, did a PhD in biochemistry, then worked as a healthcare analyst, like you, in London for best part of a decade, UBS and HSBC. Then I'd been completely bitten by the bug of biotech and set up a cancer vaccine company in the 90s. Then moved to Australia. I've been CEO of a couple of publicly listed companies before Race, and also have a very interesting innovative antibody company. I was there as CEO for 7 years. So seen a lot, been around the traps for a long time too.
Megan?
Yes, so Megan Baldwinand. I am an independent non-executive director of Race. I've been on the board for almost a year, joined about this time last year actually, and it's been really great to interact with the board members. My background is also as a scientist, like my fellow directors. I did a PhD in Melbourne at the Ludwig Institute for Cancer Research. I majored in molecular biology and physiology. I did a lot of the early work around the angiogenic pathways, which have been an enormously successful target for many companies to produce multi-billion-dollar drug assets. I did a postdoc at Genentech in San Francisco, lived there for almost 6 years. Before coming back to Australia, and I've led both Circadian Technologies and Opthea Limited since that time. So an experienced biotech ASX company CEO with a scientific background. I sit now on a number of boards, a couple of private companies, which is great to kind of keep a hand on that early stage research side, but to also bring my background in taking a molecule through preclinical all the way into phase 3 registrational studies as well.
Right, and Daniel?
I think most people know who I am. I also have a PhD in molecular biology. I came to Race a bit differently to everyone else. I forced my way into the company as an investor back in 2019 and have been sort of beavering away to turn what I think is a really great opportunity into something amazing. So it's been quite a journey. So I have probably the least amount of experience in the biotech space compared to the rest of the board, but I've been the luckiest, I think, by far.
I think it's fair to say it's been a transformational journey for everyone.
It has been. I've learned a huge amount along the way, and been able to be part of something that's really amazing.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, I have a healthcare background prior to being an analyst, so I've gone from one side to the other also. I think at this point it might be helpful just to set the scene, and with that we might start with the obvious question, which is how does Race Oncology's mission guide the board and management team's priorities? And maybe we'll start with Pete on that one.
Yeah, the mission that we're on is very, very patient focused, and it's about just generating better outcomes for patients in terms of We want more patients to be cured of their cancers ultimately. Clearly that's the number one objective. But I think a very close second that's emerged, I think, more recently is the focus on cancer survivorship and ensuring that not only are you treating the cancer, but you're also thinking very, very hard about the quality of life of the patient afterwards. And yes, I think that's our core mission, is to just get better outcomes. And that is driven across the board, and that means amongst the staff as well. And we're constantly thinking about how we can move forward, how we can improve things. And the board's role is really to obviously articulate strategy, but also to make sure that everything is working properly on an operational level and from a governance level as well. So I think we've done collectively a very good job in making sure that we have a rigorous framework in place to basically make sure that the staff, everyone within the company, can actually get on with the job and deliver. And I think that's a very, very important role. So I see the role of the board very much as a process of facilitation.
Just on that, and I wanted to add to the introductory piece, I don't think I've seen a board so well equipped with such deep experience in the sector as Race. Moving on to the company's positioning at the moment, the past year has seen a lot of progress on the scientific side and also on the leadership renewal side. What are some of the milestone moments that stand out to each of you? Maybe we'll begin with Daniel on that.
Particularly in the last few weeks, it's been particularly, it's been bringing together a lot of things that have been in progress for quite a long time. IP situation has really fundamentally changed the opportunity that Race has. It means we can build upon the discoveries we made and actually capture that value. And then the other thing was actually working out how the drug works is just critical. One of the things is in oncology, you can't just wander around aimlessly throwing drugs together and seeing if something works. You really need to be able to focus in, identify what is most likely to work, and ensure that you get a successful outcome. And we've been incredibly lucky that it turns out the mechanism of action is pretty much unique out there, and it can target things that no one else can target, that have been sort of the holy grail of drug development for a long time in oncology. So you can't ask really for more from a molecule as simple as Bisantrene.
There's obviously been a lot of progress in recent times. How has this influenced your decision to change the name of the company?
Yeah, it's a good question. Quite often when companies change their name, it's because there's been some sort of corporate catastrophe, a drug failure or whatever, and then you have a phoenix rising from the ashes with a new name and a new product licensed in. That isn't what this is about. What this is about is to really emphasize how the landscape has changed for Race because of the new intellectual property and the understanding of the mechanism of action, and therefore I think the clear vision that we now have on where we can fly this vehicle. I think it's to really say, pay attention. Things have really, really changed, and changed for the better. So that's what's really driving it, and that's largely why we've kept the ticker RAC, and we've kept the allusion to Race in Recura. So we're not completely ditching the old Race. We're saying it's progressed, it's morphed, it's different, and we're now moving forward.
So you're basically signalling to the market that this is a reimagined company.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you've looked at Race before and it wasn't for you, now is a great time to look and recheck and see what's there, and you'll be potentially blown away. And that's certainly something that's come out. We've been just back from Asia talking to people, and they're blown away with what we have and what we've created. And that is, we want the Australian investors who've been there for longer, who know more about the history, to really look and say, this is actually an amazing opportunity. I should explore this more. It won't be for everybody, but for those that it is, it's something there that's truly amazing.
Yes.
It's been a transformational journey, that's for sure.
I do think it comes on the back of a lot of very intense and diligent work in the background that the team, led by Daniel and his scientific insights, to get the understanding the mechanism of action and the intellectual property position, which has been driven by a number of people, that underpins a successful biotech company. They are the backbone, the building blocks of a successful biotech company. And now we've in that fortunate position over the last month or so, where that information has been able to be shared. It's really, a real turning point for the company. And I think in terms of the stability of leadership and at the level of the board as well, the name change just helps to just solidify that this is perhaps a new era for the company. It signals our growth and the next phase. Also, driven by the fact that we're in the clinic and that's all going very, very well as well. So it's definitely a positive kind of stage that we are hoping to kind of communicate through the name change as well.
We're ticking a lot of boxes there.
I think it also, and when I reflect on, coming to be a member of the board, I think for me there were a lot of similarities with what I saw in immunoglobulin. Really the backbone of what built CSL, and what will continue to be the fundamental driver of its value. And the beauty of immunoglobulin is it's effectively a pipeline in a product. There are so many different applications for immunoglobulin, many that people still don't fully understand, but it continues to deliver, and it delivers well. And it's not really a, sexy product, but it's something that fundamentally delivers value. And when, speaking to Pete, I've known Pete for a long time, 20 years or whatever it is.
20 years, yeah.
And we talked about me coming to join the board, learning more about bisantrene and the potential that it held, and the fact that there was so many parallels that I saw with IG. And I just thought, holy cow, there's something here if we can really unlock the potential, keeping focus. And again, one of the things that Daniel and Pete are probably sick of me saying, and Megan, is, this strategy is about what you don't do as much as what you do. We can focus on what we deliver with a view of always where we want to go down into the future, and deliver these key milestones. This is going to be what really unlocks true potential for our shareholders. Okay.
And that's often the hardest thing with biotechs, is staying focused and having a disciplined approach to everything.
Yeah, particularly if you've got a team who are highly enthusiastic, right, that want to do so much, and you see how many different opportunities are available, narrowing it down, recognizing that there is that enthusiasm, narrowing it down, because you've got limited resources, capabilities, and whatnot. That's going to be really what you deliver the value on.
And of course, those decisions are informed by your wealth of experience. And it is a very strong board, in my opinion. Maybe it's a good time now to characterise the oncology landscape. There's been a lot of progress, checkpoint inhibitors, CAR-T. It's moving very fast. And the question to me would be, where does Race Oncology fit into that landscape? Where can you make a difference? And perhaps we can start with Pete on that one.
The story that was there when I joined the board was around cardioprotection, and that story has not changed one bit. Chemotherapy is still used despite all of the modern therapies, ADCs, trispecifics, bispecifics, CAR-T, immune checkpoints. Chemotherapy is still the backbone treatment for a lot of patients, at least at some point in their journey. We know that doxorubicin use is actually going up rather than down, despite the fact that clinicians would like to get rid of it altogether because of the toxicity issues and the damage it does to the heart and to the entire body. So that combination of RC220 with doxorubicin, and that is still as valid and as valuable today as it was. But then we've got this additional element of, well, let's just back up. Targeted therapies now are, they've been with us now for around 20 years, and they have been the mainstay of pharmaceutical development for a long time. What is a targeted therapy? It's you identify that there's a particular mutation that occurs frequently that drives a particular cancer, and you develop a drug that will bind to the mutated protein and basically switch it off. So that mutation is switching on a signaling pathway that drives the cell to grow. And there are tens of billions of dollars of sales of different targeted therapies going after different mutated proteins, KRAS, EGFR, ALK, BTK, the list goes on. Don't need to know what they all are or do, but they're all signaling to tell the cell to grow. And so the discovery we have is through the silencing of MYC, is because MYC is actually downstream of all those pathways. So we can now rationally go and have a look at all of those targeted therapies, which are absolutely the mainstay of therapy for a lot of patients. And there's the opportunity now, a little bit like the cardioprotection, to make it better. In this case, keep them working for longer. Mm-hmm. Because in a lot of cases when a patient progresses from a targeted therapy, sometimes there's another targeted therapy that they can use on top. But for a lot of patients, there's nothing. Mm-hmm. And the prognosis is very, very poor. So we now have the ability to make some chemotherapy better, but also potentially to extend the utility of a lot of modern targeted therapies. So it's a very interesting and unique position to be in. And it's really to do with this broad effect and the centrality of MYC to a lot of these processes.
Just to paraphrase part of that, obviously Herceptin kickstarted the whole targeted therapy landscape regime back in the mid-90s. But even so, chemotherapy is still the backbone in first line settings for most treatments. So what I'm hearing is bisantrene has the opportunity to reinvigorate basically the backbone of chemotherapy, plus have the targeted therapy aspect to it.
There is a drift of late from chemotherapy as frontline to these targeted agents as frontline, and as a means to get away from, but they all fail, and when it does, there are often limited options for the patient. So being able to make those drugs work better for longer is a great outcome. The other thing I would add to all of this is a real focus on building something that's attractive to large pharma. There's a patent cliff coming up for all the big pharma, all the big top selling drugs in oncology are all coming off patent sometime between sort of now and 2030. And there's a real need and hunger within the large pharma to acquire new blockbuster type opportunities. We think we have something that could be that scale, and it's our job to build it out, prove it up, and make sure that someone picks it up for the maximum return for our shareholders.
It's a really good point, Daniel, and I think it hits on one of the fundamental aspects that certainly Pete, Megan, and to a lesser extent I bring to the table is, or from a partnering perspective certainly, is understanding what is required, what do prospective partners require in a package, right? And we always look at it through that lens. But the other beautiful point about this is there's optionality, because there's a real capacity for us, if we do it in an appropriate and measured way, we could potentially commercialize this ourselves in a much more targeted fashion. So that's the beauty of the approach that we're taking, is clearly we're optimizing what we do to really improve our capacity to partner, but not at the expense of potentially going all the way ourselves if we chose to. There's examples, and Pete's got some great examples that he talks about that have done this incredibly well. Abraxas is an example, right?
Yeah. Yes, I think that is something that every biotech has to think through, is if we have to go it alone, how will we do it? Yeah. And of course, in the case of Abraxas did very, very well. The drug called Abraxane that it took all the way through, it was effectively a single product company. They marketed it. Now, of course, a little biotech isn't going to be as effective as a big pharma at marketing a drug. But then Celgene saw the opportunity, they acquired it. Celgene was ultimately acquired by Bristol Myers Squibb, and then the sales potential was realised. So, there are multiple paths, and I think it always, when planning, you have to think, right, how is this drug going to end up on market? Because if we're not doing it, somebody else has to do it. So there has to be a very practical and tractable path to get there. So I think it's important. Very few biotechs actually get to the point of selling their own drug. Very, very few. I'd actually have to look up the statistic. But I think you've always got to be thinking about, right, how would a pharma partner get this to market?
I guess that it's a balancing act, optimizing the value while it's still in the biotech. At what point do you partner at, and what bargaining position do you have?
But it's investing in that path,
Yeah.
so that you are on the right path, so a potential partner knows that you've built the data package which supports them taking it on, and then you're not losing time. So an investment in those things to position the company itself to take it forward is actually adding value to partnership discussions, because that's what a partner wants to see. They want to see that you're on the right path, that you're investing in all of those critical activities, and ultimately that increases the value of your asset. And this opportunity that we have at Race is, as Pete described and Serge described, it's broadly applicable across multiple different therapeutics that are out there. And there's a lot of drive by these companies to want to protect those franchises. And if there's an opportunity for a drug like Bisantrene to come along and actually extend the treatment course for these patients that do develop resistance, that's going to be a very, very attractive opportunity for many, many pharmaceutical companies around the world.
And I think just to refer to both of your answers there, number one and number two in the data package that pharma wants to see is IP, and they want to know mechanism of action.
How does it work?
Really, really, really struggle to do a deal without both of those, and that's basically what we've done in the past month or so, or what we've announced in the past month or so. So from a business development point of view, that is absolutely transformative. Now the job is to go on and prove out the hypothesis based on the mechanism, test it in combinations with other drugs, be able to show that yes, it does work, it does make this drug work for longer or prevent the emergence of resistance. So now, we have been working on this, but there are many other places that we can choose to go, and we can do it in a rational way, driven by the market and the value.
And discipline.
Yeah, look, in my experience in partnering and BD and licensing is big pharma have so many options, right? You really need to get those your home in order. These are basics that you absolutely need. And then on top of that, the points of differentiation, they're going to really entice. And so that's exactly what the team's focusing on, ensuring that we're up to deliver on what are these key points of differentiation that is going to entice big pharma to get involved. And that's part of what we bring, is to really give that edge and just make sure that we're educated on not only the core package, but other elements that are going to be really appealing to prospective partners.
I think it's critical that you actually have multiple options and you have alternatives. If you focus in, we're going to make a drug that's companion for a single drug with a single company, you've got no leverage on that, and even if they like what you're doing, they'll acquire you for a premium to the current market cap. What you really want to do is be something that multiple players see, we have to have this drug. This is going to transform the drugs we have. It's going to give us a competitive edge everywhere else. It can add directly to the bottom line of the drugs we're currently selling. And if you have something like that, and there's multiple players that can see that, then you've got the possibility of a bidding war. The hardest thing in the pharma industry is to create a bidding war, because no one wants to participate in one. But when you get one, the shareholders all win. Except the shareholders of the company that ultimately acquires.
Nothing like a bit of FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's create something unique that could appeal to multiple companies, and if we can do that, at this point, in our research, every large pharma company that's got an oncology position could acquire Race and add to the value of their platform, and it's our job to make sure that they all want it.
And I think the other aspect is you are seeing an evolution of the whole space, as has been discussed before. Strategies change within big pharma, right? And across the board. So we can't, exactly as Daniel says, we can't be beholden to a single approach because we don't know who the players are ultimately going to be. We have a general sense, but even you're seeing the mid-cap starting to rise into a space where they're becoming much more substantial players in the oncology space. So to an extent, you know, this is why it's so important that we deliver what is critical for the package, for the data package, because we may not ultimately know who those bidders are going to be. We have to keep true to what we want to achieve, and so that's fundamentally important.
And the other thing I think is germane to throw into the mix here as well is the extraordinary rise of China.
Yeah.
It's been a startling transformation over the past few years from companies focusing on their local domestic markets to now generating real world-beating drugs. They're still mostly playing catch up, but that is about to change. So again, there will be companies out there that have multiple different targeted therapies against different targets. But there's a new cadre of companies coming through that have global ambitions and full pipelines, and they need to find some means of becoming the number one market leader in a field. So I think we're looking at this very holistically. I can tell you it's a lot of work going through every company, working out where are they, and with that targeted therapy, how much patent life does it have left? But we're going through this in a very systematic way. We have a big spreadsheet with all the major companies and all of the different targets, and it logs in the cells for where they've got one. But then there's a more detailed analysis of the market dynamics behind it. But just throw China in, and we were in Hong Kong as a team a couple of weeks ago, partly to visit our clinicians there, our clinical sites, partly to meet with investors, but very much to be thinking about China entry and how we go about that.
Yeah, and this has been a focus for some time. The reason why we have clinical trial sites in Hong Kong is, that is a stepping stone. It's very hard, as Serge knows, of going straight into China. From outside, you have to do it carefully and considered. You need a good partner, and you need to have a process to go about. But if we look forward 10 years into the future, the primary market for pharmaceuticals is going to be China and not the US. And it will only continue to grow as it becomes wealthier.
I think that's a real good point. And I think the other aspect is the relationships. It takes time to build those relationships. It's a fundamental part of doing business in that part of the world. I was fortunate to have worked there for about 10 years and know it takes a long time. So we're laying the groundwork, exactly as Pete and Daniel have mentioned, to really establish ourselves, but it takes time. But I think we're going to be all the better for it.
Yeah. Also, Australia has a huge advantage right now. There's global conflict, political conflict going on between the US and China, which is making it very difficult for US companies to work in China and for Chinese companies to work in the US and to collaborate. And Australia is sitting outside of that. We can work both with Chinese companies, we can work with US companies, and we're in a unique position for that. So I think where Australia is often struggled because they're a long way from the heart of biotech, which has historically been in the US. Now we're actually in an opportunity where we're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
It's another part of the luck that comes with race. 10 years ago,
luck is preparation meet opportunity. So.
Yeah, 10 years ago, we wouldn't have this opportunity, and 10 years in the future, it will have completely changed. We're right at the right time to be able to sit on both sides and take advantage of all the opportunities that throws up.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And to your point, Serge, cutting through that noise with a product and a company really reflects the discipline of management and the board.
Oh, Chris, it's what it's all about is the focus. Because you can get distracted by the number of opportunities or challenges that are there, because there's a lot of work that's involved. So, we as a board, particularly, Megan and myself as independent non-execs, we're not, day-to-day involved in the work that as much as Daniel and Pete. So we can provide a level of perspective as well, which I think is really quite helpful, and obviously that governance overlay. So for us, it's really how do we keep things going, and really it's light touch, right? Because these guys are just remarkably good at what they do, as is the team. But we're able to just have a different perspective on things instead of always being in it. So I think that's one of the features that we.
One of the things that's been really helpful though is just the culture of the company is to be incredibly transparent.
Yeah.
A little unusual for non-executive directors to sit in on weekly progress meetings and updates, but that's what we do as a board. We all get on those calls on a weekly basis. I know that I've personally found that incredibly helpful to get an update on just the day-to-day progress that's going on. And it does mean that we're actively engaged. We really know the strategy is being implemented every day that we get up, and it gives us the ability then to have the oversight and to really make informed decisions with regard to strategy. We are not a board that is just popping in for a board meeting every few months to throw a couple of comments around. It really is a much more diligent and well thought out process that I think
rigorous discussion
has been fostered between all of us, because it's a healthy debate often, right?
Well, and I think when we talk about the governance type side of things or operational type side of things, lawyers, accountants, and people like that can do that job. But I think the fact that we've got science behind us, the entire board has scientific training, scientific method, whatever you want to refer it to, but also has that operational experience and governance experience and all of that. I think that's very, very important. That's why I think this works very, very well at Race, and people appreciating the science and getting excited by it. That's an important part of it. It's a motivation.
From my perspective, the ability to be able to communicate something in 30 seconds, where we take to non-scientists, right, you would take an hour, and you get to the end of it and they'd have no understanding. I don't have to do that. I can just say something and immediately Serge and Pete and Megan will understand what I'm talking about, rather than having to explain all the background, all the detail, all of this. And we can board meetings are so efficient in comparison to when you don't have that. Well, it's really from my perspective an amazing board. We all bring an understanding together.
Well, in a sense, how can you have good governance if the board doesn't actually understand what the company's doing?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Yeah. So you're all on the same page, and that answers my next question, which was going to be around governance and engagement. But obviously you've answered it correct me if I'm wrong, but you've all got very deep scientific backgrounds. So, and you're all understanding of what the question is. So that all complements one another.
I think, Chris, it's a good point, because I think we've all got all PhDs and good, strong scientific backgrounds, but we come to the question from different angles, right? So I think the combination is really beautifully able to wrap around what the issue might be. That's I think a real positive.
It's very complementary. You've all got commercial experience too.
Yeah.
I think Pete has said it many times to me, which is, look, as a board, you've got to let management get on with it.
Yeah.
Management have a job to do. The strategy is set by the board. You need to understand and be engaged enough to know exactly what is going on. But the last thing you want to do is interfere with that process. So you want it to be effective, you want it to be efficient progress of the program. And I think that facilitating that as a board is really important. And I think that that's what we all bring. It's that culture of, right, how do we make informed decisions quickly so that management can get on with it? And that's what I think you're seeing the fruition come to the fore with now, with the progress that's been made.
It's very focused, and as a result, very disciplined. I've got a few light-hearted questions, so-called.
Are they for now?
Starting with Dan. Maybe the obvious one is, you've all had quite long careers in this sector. What's one lesson from your early career that still guides you today? And we may start with Daniel.
It's a hard one. Question everything. There's nothing that's necessarily impossible, and there's always a way to get a solution to a problem if you just bash away at it, no matter how difficult it can be. So you would think, well, how do you turn a old chemo drug which failed into something of value? And you might think it's impossible, and you move on. But the reality is actually, if you discover something, there might be something in there. So look at it, think about it, and think there is a solution to all these problems. That's what we've done at Race, which is, quite an amazing outcome to get from where we started to where we are today. Is, seems impossible at the beginning, but actually it's not.
So question everything.
Yeah, and question everyone.
I would say a lesson I've taken from the earliest stages of my career is scientific rigor and scientific integrity. I think it always has to come back to that.
Mm-hmm.
Do the right studies, do it robustly in a well-controlled way to get the answer. That's what clinical trials are. They're an experiment. You want to be able to get the answer. It may not always be the answer that you want or that you would hope for, but you always have to come back to not compromising on the quality of the experiment that you're doing. So do it with integrity, do it robustly, do the right study to get the answer. And I think if you carry that through, we all had to do that in our PhD, but you've got to carry that through into biotech companies. I think, sometimes there are companies that just keep things going if they haven't, got the answer that they want. Get the answer and allow that to then guide you what you're doing next. That's what scientific rigor is.
I think thinking back about companies I've worked in, I think the thing I've learned is to give the team, the broader team, that's everybody, the room to breathe, the room to contribute, and for everyone to feel able to contribute. And I think Race does that par excellence. So I think everybody, from some of the junior scientists through to the board, everyone can be heard, and everyone's idea is as valuable as anybody else's. And I think creating that environment, that's how you create winners, because it's never despite what Daniel might lead you to believe, it's never a one-man show or a one-woman show. It's always a team effort, and the contributions, from the team at Wollongong, the clinical team, the board, everywhere, has definitely changed the face of Race. So I think, congratulations to the entire team.
And I think that speaks to the culture of the organisation.
Yeah.
And motivates people to come forward with good ideas.
Look, I think for me, it's kind of like have fun with the people that you work with. I mean, at the end of the day,
That might be an HR issue.
So if you can't enjoy working with colleagues on something that you all believe in and that you're committed to, I mean, when things are going great, it's great. It's very easy. When things are going, are being challenged, that's when the real. Exactly.
It's a real test.
And I think early on, we had to work through some things, and you just find the true element of people in those challenging points. And so I think that's for me been really, really an eye-opener and something that's been a focus throughout. And the other aspect is that it just means that you will work despite what people might say outside. They might fling things at you, but you just keep doggedly going on because you believe in it. You keep going. And that my experience in DD, right? You would kiss many frogs, and invariably you would have lots of knockbacks. But as long as you continue to believe in what you're doing with people that you trust that have got your back, you will achieve their ultimate for the long term.
If I can pick up on that last point, and this leads me to my next question, I guess that talks to what makes you passionate about biotech and what actually gets you through the tough times.
The people. I mean, the patients.
The patients.
The patients that you are that's what ultimately what it's all about, right? It's knowing that we're going to be able to change the life of not only the individual, but that whole community around them, family, friends, everyone.
Yeah.
It's changing that one life that can make a world of difference.
Yeah. Pete, what are you passionate about? Same thing?
Well, I think, and this is genuine. So when I was at university, I think it was when Genentech and Amgen and Cetus and Chiron were floating that first generation of the big, biotechs. Obviously, Genentech first one. So I think one of them went up 30-fold on the first day post-listing. And I remember absolutely sitting back going, right, so in biotech, you're working on cutting-edge science with brilliant people on projects that can change lives, and you can make some money out of it. I thought, what's wrong with that? That's what I want to do. And in my career, I actually went into the financial world because I thought that was going to be an easier entry point to biotech companies rather than trying to climb up through R&D. And
Work better up.
well, I thought I was going to be an analyst for 2 years, and then segue, but actually it was a decade. But I had fun doing that too.
I think it's hard to go past what gets you out of bed in the morning. It's because you're doing something that is meaningful for patients.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why we're in this industry. We are driven by the science and understanding that very, very deeply, and then having that translate into quality of life for people. And there are a lot of hard days in biotech. There's no doubt about it. You test your resilience on a day-to-day. It's a slog. It's not a 10-second race. It's years and years of dedication. And unless you hold on what we're doing is meaningful, it's pretty darn hard. And along the way, you want to be doing it with the people that you want to be around, and you want to have shared goals and have a little bit of fun along the way if you've got it done right. But it's about the patients that you're going to say, right, I'm going to get up, I'm going to keep going. It's hard, but I'm going to keep on doing this.
Especially in cancer, I mean, it's touched everyone. Everyone has contact with people.
Absolutely, and everyone's got their personal story that they can bring to the table. And I know people are really moved by that when they hear what you do on a day-to-day basis. There's always a level of engagement, isn't there? There's always that, well, what a great fundamental thing to be able to work on every single day of your life.
And everyone can relate to that. Daniel?
For me, it's actually the molecule, which is kind of silly. But, a couple of years back when I came in as CEO, it was kind of us sitting there debating with myself, do I want to do this? I knew it was going to be, a real commitment for a long period of time. I was enjoying my retirement, and I thought, this molecule, it can't fail. It's too good. It will make too much difference to too many people in the world. But keeps coming back to this molecule, this bisantrene, it wants to be helping people. And it's only going to happen if we all pull together as a team. Everyone works really hard. The likelihood of any drug making it to market is so low. And this one's special. And to see it fall over would be terrible. So that's what keeps me motivated, is making sure this gets to market and gets to patients.
This is sort of an odd question, but let's phrase it as a superpower.
Oof.
I'd like to hear each superpowers from each of you and why you think that's important to Race. What makes Race unique as a consequence of your superpowers?
Superpower. Look, it's a superpower, but I am just tenacious. I will not stop things. I'm pretty dogged when I've got something between the teeth, as Pete probably can attest. Again, if I believe in something, then really I'll smash through walls to try to achieve it. That's it.
So I'd say I'm going to have two superpowers.
Oh, no.
The first one, and it's not really a superpower, it's something that I've had to work on over the years, largely with boards, and it's the ability to stay calm, to just not get emotional, try and stay focused on what are we trying to achieve. And then the other thing is I think I'm very, very good at spotting other people having good ideas. and then just going, say that again, let's build on that. And because, again, and if you build that culture where people are spitting ideas out, every now and then you go,
Yep.
that's a good one. So those are my superpowers.
Superpower, it's an interesting term. I'm not sure if I would define it as a superpower, but look, I think I go about things in a similar way to Serge. Just keep going hard. Work as hard as you possibly can all the time. Give 100% all the time. And that plays into the resilience kind of piece of it as well. You've got to just keep on getting up and going. If you don't have that inside you, that drive to just keep on pushing through when it gets hard, I don't think you can get through the sector and biotech.
You need resilience for sure.
Oh, it's a test every single day.
And any setback is a test
Grit.
of that.
Grit's a good word. Yeah,
Great. Daniel?
I think differently to everyone else.
that's true.
That is true.
And so I see things that other people don't see. And it's also my biggest weakness as well, because it's a double-edged sword, as the cliche goes. But by being able to see things that other people can't see, you can accomplish things that other people can't do. So, that's got me a long way in life, and given me a lot of interesting things along the way to do. So it does make me a bit of a difficult person to sometimes understand what is Daniel on about again. Sometimes it's some crazy idea, and you'll go, no, it's actually really a good idea, and it'll take time. It's been great working with this version of the board, because often they'll actually get it a lot quicker than others would, and so I'll come up with some idea, and it will be, oh, actually that's a good idea.
I was going to say, to me, superpower, call it what you will, but the loyalty that you're able to engender from the team, right? The fact that they're able to buy into the vision of what you're trying to achieve and have you just see when we're on those calls, those weekly calls, it's visible. You just see that they really appreciate and understand exactly what's trying to be achieved. And I think Daniel does a great job of allowing them to do what they need to do to get on with it. So that breeds to me a strong level of loyalty. Again,
it talks to culture. I think you've answered it anyway. You all obviously are very complementary skill sets and personalities, but I have to ask it anyway. Maybe just one word response. What do you enjoy most about being part of the Race team?
I can't limit it to one word, but patient outcomes.
Yep. So would that be the same, Megan?
Look, it's patient outcomes, but it's also, I think, the collaborative nature of how we work together. Again, not one word.
Yeah, that's okay. Sorry, I should have said under 20.
Under 20.
And then obviously you enjoy the team and as a group.
Yeah, the thing I love particularly about biotech is you literally start off with nothing other than just an idea, and you, through effort and collaboration and toil, you actually create something real out of nothing, out of thin air. And that's just such an amazing thing you can do from that. So to get to where we are today, where everything's becoming concrete and patient focused, from something where just a concept is, that's something that you feel immensely sort of proud of to get to there.
We've all been in companies and had products that have failed, and that's just the nature of the industry. But what we're doing here is just ensuring that there's evidence to support everything that we're doing. We're giving every opportunity for this product to succeed, to Daniel's earlier point. But that is just the nature of the industry. We're setting up the experiments, and we're wishing that everything works out best for the patients and for our investors. But ultimately, the goal is going to be those clinical outcomes down the track. So we never lose sight of the fact that there is risk. This is what we're all about as well.
And to your point, that's very valuable. It's that experience of having things that don't necessarily go well, is very valuable to a company like this.
Yeah, we've got lots of calluses and scars to show for it, but that's what makes you stronger, and helps inform the decisions that we make long term.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think if you're in the industry or been in the industry as long as we have, and you haven't had something blow up in your face,
Something wrong or incredibly lucky.
Well, yeah, I mean, just the stats are constantly against you. I always said that to really be in biotech, you've got to be a pathological optimist. You've got to have an unrealistic view of your likely chance of success.
You need that conviction.
Yeah.
And you're seasoned enough to know to substantiate your opinions. So it's not as if you're
and I think it's important. And I know Daniel does, and we all do. We've been talking to shareholders. Not the fund managers. They understand risk. They understand portfolio theory. But to really emphasise to individual shareholders that you might believe in what we're doing. We believe in what we're doing, but there is always that chance of failure. And I think it's you've got to ground yourself in that and know that something might not work out as you think it is. And again, I think we can make the point, be true to it, interrogate that data and say, is that really telling us that we should continue this program? Yeah. So, I think everyone should be prepared at any time to shut down the project.
Yeah.
And I remember actually at AMRAD, remember that one, I called a meeting and I said, right, we were talking about, it was AM366. And I said, the entire executive team, and I said, right, who in this room really wants to continue with this project? Nobody said anything. I said, it's cancelled. And I think, again, you've got to be true to yourself. You've got to ask the questions. Does anyone in this room really passionately believe that we're heading in the right direction?
Yeah.
And if they do, you've got to listen to them. But if a project doesn't have support and the data doesn't support it, then you've got to have
a hard decision. There's hard decisions to be made all the time. And I think leadership through the good times certainly, but also through the setbacks and through the challenges, that builds you as a leader. It does mean that you have that forethought going into the next program, that right, are we looking at this from every angle? How can we de-risk? Of course, you always think, how do you de-risk? Yeah. But along the way with those years of experience, you can come with your eyes fully wide open. You're never going to completely bring the risk down to zero. And I think the challenge for a lot of investors is understanding that. No matter what you do, that is science. It's an experiment, but let's do it the right way. And let's always have it in our mind that, okay, how do we maximise the chances of success? That's the best that you can do. And you bring multiple people to the table, all with their perspectives, then you're giving it the best shot.
And those experiences inform everything you do.
Absolutely.
And
they build who you are.
It's all about objectivity and discipline. Totally agree. One last question to the panel. From an investment point of view, and for shareholders that are looking at this right now, what would you say is the most exciting near-term catalyst on the horizon? By that I mean 6 to 12 months from today. What is it that is really exciting for you about Race?
I think the real sleeper here is the work around the mechanism of action. We talked about the centrality of MYC, this undruggable target upregulated in 70% of cancers, associated with resistance across multiple different anti-cancer classes. I think that we are doing a lot of work teasing out, how RC220 bisantrene works with these other agents. And I think as we start rolling that out from both a partnering perspective, but also from a potential therapy perspective, I think that's going to become, the real driver behind the story. So I think it's very, very exciting. I've been associated with MYC on other projects for several years, so it's kind of amusing in a way to find that this is a central piece of the mechanism of action of bisantrene. I think, and we don't know what that's going to look like, but my scientific extra sense is we're going to see some really interesting data coming through.
Daniel?
Delivering on, I guess, the promise and the opportunity that we have. I really believe that what we have is absolutely massive, and we can achieve something that hasn't been achieved in Australia before. There's no reason why, if things play out the way they could, that we could have something as large as you can get in the industry. It doesn't mean it's guaranteed. It doesn't mean that it will happen, but you've got that opportunity, and we should do everything we can if we have an opportunity like that to make sure it happens. And if we do that, we've done our job.
Going back to the mechanism of action, the optionality that the molecule presents in terms of therapeutic uses, that's a real exciting thing. It starts to really give us a glimpse as to what could be possible, right? That's I think we're at the cusp of really understanding that. I think we'll have much more clarity over that 6 to 12 month period.
So I think it's capitalising on all of the knowledge that we have built over many years, but particularly over the last 12, 18 months around mechanism of action, strong IP position. I think it's capitalising on that, and that you'll start to see that come through in our clinical strategy. And of course, we've got an ongoing trial, so obviously there'll be information that comes out of that, and that's ultimately why we're here. We're here to test our molecule in patients, so that data will start to inform our progress forward as well.
And that's happening in real time now.
Absolutely,
So-
it's all in process.
So 6 to 12 months from now,
We'll know more.
we'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, that's been a very informative discussion. Thank you for answering my questions. Thank you all for your time today. It's been very informative.
Thank you.
Thank you for people in the audience. I hope you've taken something away from this, and looking forward to progress at Race Oncology.